So, just 2 years after the center decriminalized consensual homosexual relations and also scrapped Article 377, the center on September 14th said that marriage between same sex couples is against the law and the values of the country. Now, to understand this statement better, we have a very important guest with us today, Senior Advocate Abha Singh. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking our time and
Right.
speaking to me. Ma'am, I'd like to understand to begin with, what is your assessment of this statement? How do you see this? And also keeping in fact that this statement was made by Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, who represents the center. What do you think about the statement?
In fact, when the five-member constitution bench, when it struck down 377 IPC, when it decriminalized LGBT's demand that 377 should be decriminalized, and at that time only, they said it's only that part. The Supreme Court did not talk of same-sex marriage or further
Exactly.
things. So
Yes.
that is what today when the matter came up in High Court and Tushar Mehta said, because only 377 was decriminalized, we cannot go beyond that. The Supreme Court did not talk of same sex marriage, so nothing less, nothing more. So
Right.
definitely this is what they tried to say. And also they tried to convey that we are going by religious morality or societal morality.
Yes.
Whereas in India, we have constitutional morality. It should
Yes.
be constitution which should be above your marriage as a sanctity or as a sacrament. That is what he tried to say. So somewhere I think we could not brush off our culture, our religion, our societal norms. And that is why we could not allow same-sex marriage, I would say.
Absolutely.
But of course, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it because if you see world over, almost 29 countries, all your progressive countries which have the highest human development index, the HDI index, be it Amsterdam, be it New Zealand, be it
Yes.
Canada, be it Iceland, they all have legalized same-sex marriage. But
Yes.
I think India is on the way, but we have not reached there as yet.
Absolutely. Adding to what you said, ma'am, why do you think India is failing to give this recognition to a community that we've already recognized, and still, such comments coming year after year somehow brings down the morale and adds to the woes or say their uncertainties in a country like India? Why do you think are we failing to do that?
Because I think somewhere religion has had very deep roots in this country, then societal norms, customs, traditions.
Yes.
Even now, the caste system is prevalent in this country. Even now, we judge a person not by merit, but by the community he comes from, by the caste he comes from.
True.
Although we've have things like reservation, and we are trying to overcome all these prejudices. But still, if you see the Dalit flogging in Una, in Gujarat, or so many places where Dalits have not been allowed to enter temples, and also I said that mindset, we still have somewhere that regressive mindset which needs to go for a toss. And I think that is why it is this element of the society which is not welcoming same-sex marriages. Because when the PIL was filed in Delhi High Court, it's tried to quote Section 5 of the Hindu Marriage Act,
Yes.
which
Yes.
said marriage is allowed between two Hindus.
Hindus. Yes.
So they said nowhere is written that it has to be a man and woman.
Yes.
But if you read that same section way down, it also says that the bridegroom should be 21 years and the bride should be 18 years.
Yes.
So you cannot say that it does not talk of man and women. So the PIL was filed only looking a particular interest. But the High Court very clearly said that what is your problem? And also, the courts do not legislate.
Yes.
As per the constitution, the right to legislate a law, the right to make a law is with the parliament. And through this PIL, we were trying to make the courts come up with a law, which they
Absolutely.
cannot. Courts are only supposed to see whether a law is null or void, any legislation, whether it violates the constitution. But you cannot ask them to make a law which is not their mandate.
Absolutely. But one very important point that he made was about how do we identify gender in a homosexual marriage? So, what his doubt was, how do you identify who is a wife and who's a husband, especially in cases of domestic violence, say, for instance? How powerful do you think this argument was?
You know, somewhere in the Hindu Marriage Act, there is also something called prohibited relationship, where the
Hmm.
sapindas, that you can't marry four generations on your
Hmm.
father's side or three generations in your mother's side, you know, all those prohibited relationships. So there a man and woman is talked of. So that is what Tushar Mehta talked of. But also what he said was that in a marriage, how will you decide who is the wife and who is the husband?
Yes.
So in case a DV Act is there, because the DV Act is always applicable to the woman who comes forward and says that she has suffered domestic violence, and then she gets remedies. So here, when both are women, how does you distinguish? How do you distinguish that who's the man and who's the wife? So that is one thing. But I also think patriarchy to a large extent is responsible, because
Yes.
marriage always was thought of, if you see the Marxist approach to marriage, that it was a sexual division of labor, or Anne Oakley, sociologist, they talked of that there was always dominance of the men, the husband.
Hmm.
So patriarchy was always writ large, and I think the husbands or the men, they wanted marriage because women were there to take care of the house, to have children, and to take care of the needs of the men. But now,
Absolutely.
when you have two men, how will the patriarchy survive? Because who will boss over whom?
Yes.
So I think that is also a very big thing which the patriarchy in this country is not ready to accept. And I think that is what also it can be seen in the laws, because ultimately all the laws have been made by the men in this country. Even when you talk of certain legislation, when it comes to the Supreme Court, in fact, it is seen that it is the men who've decided whether women will enter Sabrimala or not, or, you know,
Yes.
mostly it is a
True.
bench comprising of men. So somewhere patriarchy also has a large role to play, because I'm sure men would not let go of their wives, because the women have to be there to take care of them. Also, I think now in today's world, when you have something called live-in relationship, I
Hmm.
think Tushar Mehta's argument that who will be the wife and who will be the husband, I think that also falls flat, because in today's world, when we talk of live-in relationships, and the DV Act also provides for partners, live-in partners who
Yes.
have a shared household. So I think it doesn't matter. And also, I think with the technology and also with the science coming in, that you can have surrogacy, you can have surrogate parents. So
Yes.
that angle, people are also saying that it is absolutely demolishing the institution of marriage, because now you don't need to get married to have a child, you don't need to get married to be a mother. You can always have children through surrogacy, you can adopt. So these are the things I think that is why marriage is at crossroads.
Absolutely. Also, ma'am, Tushar Mehta very clearly said that this particular provision will be against the legal system or the law of the country. But as you also mentioned in the beginning, people or countries across the world are progressing. They are thinking about these things and also acting on it. How difficult is it to bring about some changes in the law if we decide to go ahead with this?
You know, I was looking at the countries that have legalized same-sex marriages. I think New Zealand, we look up to
Right.
Denmark, and all these, Amsterdam, and I think Iceland,
Yes.
Canada. If they are not having problems, why do we have problems?
Right.
So I think down the line, this will also come through, because at that time, Supreme Court did not want to open the Pandora's box, because in fact, initially, if you remember, when Delhi High Court had decriminalized 377, at that
Hmm.
time, Supreme Court had turned down the High Court order, and it was
Yes.
only a couple of years later that Supreme Court allowed it, and it struck down 377, and it said right to privacy, when it came that right to privacy and adult sexual consensual relationship is your personal choice. And also the courts very clearly said that Article 21, that is right to life, means right to live with dignity,
Yes.
and your own sexual orientation is your right to live with dignity. It's your autonomy. So these are the things, if you keep in mind. Right now we are not in the mental frame, because the way things are in India, you know, it will still take time. But with education and with our social media,
Yes.
because the LGBTQ community has been really active and they've got a lot of support world over. So
Hmm.
maybe another 10 years down the line, I mean, if not 5 years, we may have another, another real big change coming, like right to privacy came, like honor killings, like something like that. We still have in
True.
this country honor killing where two people who fall in love, if they're from different communities, different religion, they are still killed. Your own parents
Yes.
they are forced by the community. So a country which has honor killings, I think in that community allowing having a same sex marriage is a little long way off.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, ma'am, the court has adjourned the hearing for another date. Meanwhile, the court has asked the petitioners to come up with certain names or instances where people from the LGBT community faced difficulties or were not allowed to register their marriages. Now, in a country like India, even though we know for a fact that there are many such cases, people are afraid to come out in the open, fearing acceptability and a lot of other things. Do you think this was right by the Supreme Court, by the High Court? And also the fact that where does this go from now on? If there are no cases that are reported to the High Court who actually failed to get their marriages registered, what would then be the case?
Definitely. In fact, that is what the court said, that you want us to legislate, you want us to
Hmm.
make a law which is not our mandate. And the petitioner the lawyer for the petitioner said that these people had gone to get their marriage registered, because under the Special Marriage Act, you have to they had gone to get it registered, but somehow they were not allowed.
Hmm.
And not only that, I have seen in other cases also where interreligion marriages, when couples have gone to get their marriages registered, you have to give a notice of 1 month prior to the date of marriage, and then it is leaked. And then a lot of right wingers have come in and bullied these people, and
Yes.
they've ensured that
Yes.
the marriage has not taken place. So when you are not allowing interreligion marriages to take place, so it is very true that when two people from the same sex are going to get married, be it two men or be it two women, I'm sure there is protest, there is objection, and that is what the petitioners were saying. Although the court did say that rather than coming with a PIL, why have you come with a PIL? Because we cannot legislate a law.
Hmm.
But in case if you face this problem, that when you go to register your marriage and people object, at that time you come to us and we will give you relief. So
Hmm.
I think now there would be some brave hearts who will come forward,
Yes.
file a case in the High Court or the Supreme Court, and the benefit would come to the whole community, as we saw even in 377, that these were these two dynamic lawyers who came forward and filed the case, and then the whole community benefited. But yes, the courts did say that if you face problem when you go to register your marriage, at that time you come back to us and we will look into.
True. In the end, ma'am, what do you think India holds for homosexuals, especially at a time when there are constant hindrances and remarks made on the community? What impact do you think it has on the community?
I would feel that it is a gross violation of Article 14 under the Constitution, because on one hand we talk of equality before law and equal protection of laws. So a person has full rights under the Constitution, and your sexual preferences cannot make you be discriminated upon.
Very
So
true.
I feel when it is a fight between fundamental rights and these draconian mindsets. So Article 14 is very clear. Article 15 clearly prohibits any kind of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, or sex. It clearly says. So I think there cannot be any discrimination. But the biggest thing is Article 21, which says right to life, and that is right to live with dignity. And my dignity is compromised if I am questioned on my sexual preferences.
True.
And when India, we talk of democracy, we talk of freedom of expression, Article 19. So when it is my expression which is curtailed, my fundamental rights, so ultimately it is constitutional morality versus the societal norms. And eventually it is constitutional morality which has to be supreme. And I think this PIL is in the right direction, because 2 years back, when Justice Deepak Mishra and the other members of the Constitutional Bench struck down 377, they left this part open. They
Yes.
should have at that time also said, they could have, when they had walked those miles, they could have walked the last mile and said that same-sex marriage is allowed, but they did not. So that is why this issue remains. And I think you may decriminalize it. At least that part is over. Now police doesn't harass you. you are not bullied. There is no corruption, because before people would just, police would just round up people, same-sex people, and charge a lot of money from them, and people were scared, and there was life imprisonment up to 10 years. But you, by not allowing them to marry, somewhere you are restraining their fundamental rights. So I am hopeful that as we see how the West goes, and a lot of things, good things in India have come from the West. So eventually we would take up, as it has been done in New Zealand, Belgium, even Spain. I mean, all these countries have allowed same-sex marriages. So maybe we may be late by another 3-4 years, but the way things are, I am very hopeful. And as a human rights activist, as a gender justice crusader, my earnest hope is that the courts would take a lenient view and let everybody decide their sexual preferences and their sexual autonomy.
Absolutely, ma'am. We are all hopeful, and we believe that the country should move on from the regressive beliefs and practices. I'd again like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to me. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.